Inside a cage, there were monsters, hounds. For the recruit, it's their first time seeing monsters up close. But for Minjun, the hounds were just equivalent to Maltese or Chihuahua. The lieutenant asked if they are scared of the monster they'll be facing, and said they will form a team of 4 recruits and enter a transforming dungeon. All teams would defeat a hound within 1 hour and return. The recruit can't believe they will be facing those monsters. The lieutenant encourages them, saying, if it hurts, strengthen your core. If you're scared, use your brains and fight it out with your spirits. Erwin Smith wanted. The recruits were given armor suits for their safety. The armor is produced only with the intended purpose of protecting the physical body, and there was absolutely no effectiveness or comfort, and cost roughly 50 million won. Since it's so expensive and used very often, Minjun does not like its disgusting aura as he can smell everyone's sweat. Minjun asks the lieutenant if they could take the suits off if they defeat the hounds quickly. The lieutenant blindly replied to not be so arrogant, and then realized it was Minjun, the number 1 ranking recruit, so he allowed it. The lieutenant added that this test is ultimately a team training session. Minjun also had to take care of his comrades, so he cannot just outperform everyone else. Minjun get the idea and told his plan to his comrades. He told them that when the hounds lead to kill them, they should not be intimidated and just grab their legs and snap their backs in half. They should be dead if they do just as that. Even if the hound is still alive, then fold their backs in the opposite direction and rip them apart, like how you would rip apart kimchi. His comrades stared at him blankly, not understanding any of his instructions. The lieutenant ordered the monsters to be released. The instructor opened the cage, and the monster rushed toward the dungeon. The recruits were surprised that the monster went straight to the dungeon instead of coming for them. Minjun said that they were captured all day and their home just appeared, so why wouldn't they? The others realized it made so much sense and asked how did he know the psychology of the monsters so well. But Minjun does not answer because he was like that, and he speaks from his personal experience. The lieutenant has decided that the first team to enter will be Minjun's team for joking and laughing on the training ground. Minjun's teammates were very scared and entered the dungeon nervously, while Minjun was grateful that he could take off his dirty suit early. The lieutenant contacted the instructors inside and informed them the first team has entered. They should examine and control the situation if things get out of hand. The instructor saw Minjun in the team and was very interested to see how he performed in the dungeon. Minjun quickly realized the impatient hounds were ready to pounce. He is sure he can handle all of them as soon as they pounce, but he has to think the other comrades won't get any training experience. He told them they were coming. The recruits were very scared. Minjun told them the protective suits are really strong, so they shouldn't be afraid. Minjun decides he will take the lead, and with one punch killed the one rushing towards him. He saw his mate struggling, calling for help. He kicked the monster and killed it instantly. He told him if they bite, he has to fight back. If he is scared, they will think he is easy prey. He said to them that, if this was a real situation, 2 people would be dead by now, and we have to use the number advantage and pressure them. The instructors were surprised to see Minjun leading his scared teammates and making them act up, claiming he could be a Hunter Corps sergeant returned to the date before his enlistment, which is only possible in novels. The instructor decided that Minjun will get the highest score for his leadership quality and strength, and the rest will get an average score. The instructors reveal themselves and guide them to the exit. Minjun again teases the instructor asking if he is going to receive the vacation pass, and called them big cityers. On their way, the ground suddenly shakes. The recruit wondered if there's an earthquake, but Minjun said it was not an earthquake. The dungeon is transforming at this very moment, and the exit is closing in on itself. The situation is not looking very great. The radio is dead, and the instructors were panicked since the dungeon suddenly transformed a month early before they prepared. They decided to evacuate the recruits to somewhere safe. The instructor explained to them that there was no need to worry, and they will wait for an hour in the current spot, and see if the dungeon entrance opens up again as in the manual. They will try to assess the situation from the outside, and the lieutenant will take proper steps, so all they need to do is wait and calm down. But that was a lie. There were no such instructions in the manual. There are 2 instances when a dungeon's entrance disappears. First is when the dungeon dissipates, an instance when the dungeon naturally dissipates once you have defeated it. And when a portal gate disappears once an outsider enters, it is an enclosed dungeon. There is going to be more and more monster that appears, since the only way to exit an enclosed dungeon is to defeat every single monster within the dungeon. And since they were in an enclosed dungeon, any manner to assist them from outside is non-existent. The instructor knew they were only 6 recruits with no real battle experience, and 2 instructors. They don't know which monsters have appeared, and if they were unlucky it will be the end for all of them. But decided to move on rather than just sit still, while they still have most of their strength. Since the instructors do not have the equipment, the most successful and realistic plan of action would be to utilize the protective suits that the recruits have equipped. But as he thinks about it, his self-esteem will not allow it to use the juniors as a meat shield. While they were walking, Minjun suddenly stops. The instructor at the back asks, "Is there a problem?" At the same time, the corporal leading the line was choking and collapsed, and the instructor rushed to his aid, while Minjun shouted "Don't," as there's no way to save him. Both instructors collapsed, and the recruits were panicking. Minjun told them not to come closer, as they will face the same situation if they did. Minjun inspected and realized it was not serious, and they have just fainted. Minjun threw the body to the recruits and told them to not follow him and just stand by near the exit. The recruits said to stop, it is very dangerous, that even the instructors fainted. But Minjun runs further following the smell. Excited that he picked a scent of demonic energy, which made even the awakened instructors faint. It's not surprising, as even these guardians are veiled with a special protection that protects them against demonic energy before facing the monsters. However, demonic energy to dark mages is equivalent to a charger for a dead phone. Minjun reached the source of the energy. It was quiet, he can't find any traces of a monster anywhere. However, with such demonic energy, it can't remain hidden when facing a dark mage, and he looks up and finds a dark hound there. Dark hounds are species that are absolutely overpowering compared to ordinary hounds. During his first encounter about a year into his summoning in Isgard, he nearly died to this monster. Now he is glad that they faced again on Earth. The dark hound leaped toward Minjun, but Minjun punched and killed it instantly. Its demonic energy spills and spread everywhere. This is what made the dark hounds difficult to defeat, because it has venomous blood. When ordinary humans come in contact with it, their skin would rot. But of course, none of that applies to dark mages, and Minjun absorbs all the demonic energy. He feels excited to absorb the demonic energy after such a long while. Minjun was thinking about why the dark hound, which is normally found in Isgard, doing in a place like this. He did consider that it would be possible for the monster on Earth to harbor demonic energy, but judging by the instructor's reaction, and there is no teaching of demonic energy in the training center. So, he thinks it's the first time. Dimensional travel can only be done by someone like him, who reached the peak of dark magic, or by the saint who can utilize God's power, so the possibility is non-existent. He looked for the corpse to make a report. The recruits managed to wake the instructors up. The instructor immediately gets up and asks if they were alright. The recruit informed him that Kim Minjun headed deeper into the dungeon by himself. The corporal, upon hearing what happened, thinks about Minjun's action. Acting on his own is enough to kick him out of the team, but considered he had no right as he fainted instead of protecting. Minjun returned carrying a dark hound. He dropped the monster and asked the instructors to look at it. The instructors were shocked and asked themselves if this was what let them faint. The recruits can't believe Minjun defeated such a large monster. The gate reappeared. The corporal asks Minjun did he really defeat the hound on his own. Minjun nodded. The corporal let the instructor escort the recruit first, and said he'd follow shortly. As the others take their leave, the corporal told Minjun to report everything in detail to the lieutenant once they get outside, and not to leave anything out, including how incompetent their instructors are. Fainted and left the recruits on their own. He admits he did wrong and thanks Minjun for everyone's safety and takes his leave. Minjun was very grateful. He tried to hide out. But then, his status system pops up, and it showed the error has been fixed. Minjun asks what kind of an error was it anyways. The system then showed his stats. Minjun thinks something seems strange. He was shocked that the cult he created as a joke was in there. The Lumi Nuna is my favorite character cult. Lumi is the character from Dungeon Power Fighter. In Isgard he created this cult as a joke to get rid of the fanatics who followed him around like stalkers, but end up creating more fanatics. He looked at his stats and found that it was much worse than he expected. After he found out that his demonic energy was gone, he knew there was going to be another penalty for going through the dimensional portal. From his endless list of skills, only one remained. It was utterly useless. At this rate, he thinks he can't reach any of his objectives. But if he can do it in Isgard, he is sure he can do it again. Now that he has a clear objective, he will recover his power as soon as possible. This is nothing compared to the times in Isgard. That day, the entire training center was in utter chaos over the fact that a dungeon gate closed while training was in session, and a mere recruit managed to defeat a new species of monster, while the instructors were unable to do anything. Because of the unpredicted series that happened, the core training has been on standby. The recruits were chatting about how Kim Minjun caught a hound by himself, and think he could be advanced to sergeant within 2 years. They talk about how tough the Hunter Corps advancement exams are. Minjun was reporting himself to the training commander. There he found the lieutenant receiving his punishment. The commander dismissed the lieutenant and explained the situation to Minjun. The commander then told him that, since he received the highest score, the commander has a special proposal for him, and asked did he want to know. A crane in a flock of chickens. It's an idiom used to describe someone outstanding. The commander used it to define Minjun, as he is no ordinary human. He is the crane that makes even those above average seem like chickens. And said to himself he is lucky to live long enough to see such a sight, and thinks it would be a national loss if such talent were to join the regular ranks. So, he asked if he wanted to advance as soon as possible. Would he volunteer to join the Hunter Corps in Georwen of Gangwon-do, with an exceptional case, so he wouldn't have to wait another year. Minjun thinks about the proposal. 104th Division, the Invincible Hunter Squad. It's the place his comrades told him to avoid at all costs, as it snows constantly and the dungeons and monsters are very active. It is considered to be the most extreme out of the front lines. But it is exactly as he wanted. It doesn't matter where he is deployed if he can advance. A lot of dungeons are the best conditions possible for him. He can advance quickly and restore his power as soon as possible. So, he decided to go. On campus, Minjun and the commander bid their farewell. Commander Choi asks why he volunteered at a place everyone wants to avoid. Minjun replied he have an insane goal in life. Commander Choi told him to contact them when he reached there and take their leave. Minjun waited for his escort. The truck arrived, then a big soldier guy informed him to get in the back, and they depart. Minjun was worried that he would end up in miserable situations like in various shows, as he lacks the patience to put up with anything like that. They finally arrived at the place. The big guy guided him to his dorm. He opens the door and pushes him in, saying he's a newbie, feed and instruct him. Two guys immediately asked his name and a lot of questions with joyous expressions. Minjun thinks these are the two alphas of the dormitory, and thinks they act as if they discovered a new toy. Minjun was irritated as they asked him many questions, and they told him to show them his talent. Minjun think if he showed his talent they will cut the crap. He agrees to show them one-finger push-ups. One of them is unimpressed, saying it's not a talent, they can do that all day. But Minjun performs vertical one-finger push-ups. They were surprised, asking if there is anyone who can do that. One replied, probably that sergeant. Then Sergeant Lee Sungo appeared near the door, saying to get lost. Sergeant Lee Sungo entered the room and sweep off the two pests. He lay down and looked at his phone about volcanic dungeons that have a naturally high temperature which causes constant damage. The sergeant ordered Lee Dongjun to instruct Minjun since Minjun is his direct junior. Lee Dongjun introduced himself to Minjun and asked if he'd like to talk over some food, as he had received a special permit to visit PX. PX stands for Post Exchange. It is a type of retail store found in military installations. Minjun was shocked that they can't even go to the PX as they wish. Lee Dongjun let Minjun pick whatever he wants to eat as much as he likes, as he will be treating him. 300,000 won, said the receptionist. Lee Dongjun shakingly hands him his card. While Minjun was enjoying his food, Lee Dongjun explained the conditions required. Private first class and below can go to the PX only on weekends. Only private first class and above are allowed to use the gym, and at least corporals to use the PC room. Minjun thinks it was unreasonable to restrict the PC room and all. Lee Dongjun said that it's not something that can be changed as a private first class, and would need to advance to at least sergeant. He said that it was not easy to advance, since he had failed the advancement exam many times, and was still stuck in private first class for 3 years. Minjun told him he will surely advance next time. Sergeant Kim Gwangshik appeared, and Lee Dongjun nervously invites him to join them. He immediately grabs the food and eats their snacks. He said that if they were useless during the firearms training the next day, he wouldn't let them off easily just because he is new. And asked if Minjun knows how to shoot. Lee Dongjun said he was just about to explain it to him. Minjun was irritated and cast his magic skill secretly. He uses his E-rank corruption skill to cause Sergeant Kim's stomach to ache. Sergeant Kim immediately felt his stomach. He checks for the food expiry date, and he takes his leave, saying they should get back soon. Lee Dongjun was worried about Sergeant Kim, but Minjun asked him about the firearm training that the sergeant mentioned. Lee Dongjun asks if he had fired a KX-2 with ICM bullets before. ICM stands for Improved Conventional Munitions, and is used by Hunter Corps against monsters. So, he said that the ICM bullet they used here is even more powerful than those. It is like a pony and a wild stallion. Their recoil and sounds are as if you're firing a cannon. He said it might feel pretty awkward in the beginning, and no need to worry about it. Minjun thinks a pony and a wild stallion is a fitting comparison. And compared to the long-range weapon he used in Isgard, the weapon in Isgard must be equivalent to an elephant. He is very excited about the training tomorrow. The next day, at the firearms training facility, Minjun was shooting a target. He scored 19 direct hits with 1 miss. Everyone present can't believe their eyes. Some said it must be just a stroke of dumb luck. First Sergeant Hyo T-seok and Second Lieutenant Kim Min-chil were invigilating from a post. They were very impressed, and guessed the rumors were true after all. The two pests were asking how he shoot like that. Minjun replied he just shot as he was instructed. Sergeant Kim Min-ji came, and told him to continue showing his best in the special firearm training in the afternoon. Minjun asks Lee Dongjun about the special firearm training. Dongjun apologized for not explaining to him earlier, since new recruits take a while to get used to their ICM bullet. The special firearm training consists of a 2-person team entering the training facility and eliminating the monsters en route to the destination. Though they are highly dangerous, he will be dealing with moving targets. So, he must also be ready to counter their attacks. There will be civilian target plates that pop up, and hitting even one of them is an automatic failure. Dongjun shows his concern, saying that just because he will be facing real monsters, there's no need to worry as the executive will be controlling the situation. Minjun was excited and liked the idea that they will be facing live monsters.